Digital Danger, the Currency Crisis. Brought to you by Patriot Gold Group.
America's the greatest country in the world. Welcome to our special Digital Danger, the Currency Crisis. It is decision time in our country. Which path will you choose? We'll choose your own adventure book here for America. Will you go the way of cash or will you go the way of digital currency? We are currently in a transition period, but in the end, there is no middle ground. In Mexico, 90% of consumer transactions are done in cash. In Austria and Germany, it's 82%. So people in these countries still use cash. In America, in 2020, I'm sure it's less now, but in 2020, cash was only 19% of consumer payments. So in many ways, we've already made our decision to move away from cash. And it's been a process. This is a news clip from 1993, Burger King, when they first decided to use credit cards.
Cash or credit?
What? The home of the Whopper is offering cash or credit.
I think it's pretty bad if you have to use a credit card when you go to a fast food restaurant for something as little as $3.10.
If I use my GM card, I get a 5% rebate. If I eat here long enough, I'll be able to buy a pickup truck.
Burger King bosses say workers won't have to figure out how much change the customer gets back.
I just hope it doesn't slow things down at the cash and carry, that people are going to be having to call New York and get the confirmation or, whatever it is, because when I want a Whopper, I want it now.
That's so fun. I love that clip. Like, look at these people using credit cards for burgers. Like, that's crazy. And now that's pretty much all anyone uses for anything. We have $1 trillion in credit card debt right now. But it wasn't that long ago. Cash was 100% of all of our payments. There's no other way to pay for anything. Maybe a check. It was Frank McNamara, 1959. He went out to dinner one day in New York City and he forgot cash. Left his wallet at home, had to do the dishes in the back. So he came up with the Diners Club card. There was a card that you could only use at a few restaurants. So you could eat now, pay later. Within 2 years, there were 42,000 people who were using these cards. Then the banks jumped in, and then they made it so, of course, you could buy it on more than just food. Anywhere, credit cards were accepted. That started in 1958. Bank AmeriCard was the first one, which today we know as Visa. So it was in 1958 were the first credit cards. And now, younger people don't carry cash at all. I'm the older end of the millennial side, and I don't have cash on me. I'm not walking around with cash. Ballparks, different places are cashless. You're not even allowed to use cash. This is a guy in England, a chap, demanding that he pay for something in cash in a store that says no cash allowed. And listen to what the cashier says.
I'm going to buy some strawberries and I'm offering exactly the right amount of money here on the help desk. So you people take that money, £1.90, and I will take my strawberries outside.
You can't
If
take
you want
that.
to call the police,
You can't take that.
call the
Police is on their way. You can't take that. Police is on their way. You can't take
I love that guy. Police are on their way. Police are on their way. It's like, I paid you £1.90. Here are my strawberries. I'm out of here. Nope, can't do that. Police are on their way. So why have we gone this way? Convenience. Americans will do almost anything, no matter how bad of an idea it is, if it's easier. There was a company back in 2017 that offered to put a computer chip in people's hands. And the pitch was that you can now pay for things at a vending machine faster. You just you put the chip in front of it, the one that's in your body. And I remember that's Today's Show. The Today's Show's like, oh, look at these guys. They put computer chips in their arm. No big deal. And they loved it. Everyone's like, oh, it's so convenient. Like, doo-doo-doo. And you get your Fritos. It's so convenient. Okay, sure, but that doesn't make it good. But companies are always trying to make things easier for you, get them to you faster, right? Amazon, one click. Netflix, the next episode goes automatically. The food, of course, is fast. It's not healthy, but it's fast. Everything's faster. Everything's easier. But does that mean it's better? No, it hasn't been that long since we've had credit cards, and now Americans are $1 trillion in debt. Convenience. But this is all a middle step. This is an intermediary step to digital currency, not cryptocurrency. That's different. Government-controlled currency. So right now, you, bank, government. You operate with the bank, government operates with the bank, and then you have to pay money to the government. But it's like there's three people involved here, three groups. Central bank digital currency, no bank. It's you, government. That's it. The government controls all the money. Every purchase you make goes through the government. They're in charge of everything. They know everything. They will allow what they want to allow and not allow what they don't want to allow. The government will decide that you've bought too much meat this month. Meat's bad for the planet, don't you know? They can decide what kind of car you can buy. They can decide that you're not allowed to buy guns, of course. And also, this makes it easier for their ultimate vision, which is guaranteed minimum income. If everyone has their central bank digital currency bank account controlled by the government, every month, certain people will just have money inserted into it. No middleman. How convenient. The White House wrote a white paper on this. And even they talked about how efficient this will be. A digital form of the US dollar. Oh, everything will be so efficient. They also said it will be more environmentally sustainable. Oh, Slater, come on now. This is all very dystopian. This is absurd. This will never happen. You're being ridiculous. Okay. Do you remember the trucker protest in Canada? These truckers were against the vaccine mandates, so they shut down some streets in Ottawa. So people started donating to them on GoFundMe, $5 million. GoFundMe shut it down because they're woke. So then people gave money to the website Give, Send, Go, their more conservative website. Give, Send, Go didn't shut it down, but the government came in. They shut it down. And the government froze the personal bank accounts of at least 200 people, totaling $8 million. That's $40,000 per bank account, frozen solid. Then someone hacked into the Give, Send, Go, and they found everyone who donated and put those names of people and businesses online to shame them, to boycott those businesses and shame those people for daring to support this truckers' protest. But don't worry, that will never be a problem, because with the central bank digital currency, you just won't even be able to donate to whoever you want to. Surely not to groups like groups that are on the Southern Poverty Law Center hate group watch list, like those evil Moms for Liberty, group of conservative moms who want people to run for school board. Can't allow that. So if you want to donate to them, you won't be able to. The government central bank digital currency won't even allow it. Listen, there's three ways the government can control you, three main ways. First, they can control where you drive, and electric vehicles will enable this. They control your speech, what you can say, or what you can't say, and then compel you to say things as well, so they control your speech. And they can control what you can or cannot buy. Now, right now, they don't have the technological power to do that, but with the central bank digital currency, they sure will. So we as a country, we need to pick a way, and I mean this. Austria is proposing to make it a constitutional right to carry cash. They're on it. They see it. They get it. They know where we're going. Congressman Tom Emmer, House Majority Whip, he's from Minnesota, he introduced the Central Bank Digital Currency Anti-Surveillance Act. You can read what he said right here. He's one of the few guys who's about it, who sees it, who gets it, and who wants to prevent it from happening. 130 countries are currently talking about this, figuring out which way they will go. And might I say, if conservatives don't take a well-informed and vocal stance on this, we will always go the default way, the way towards tyranny, the way towards authoritarianism. We'll always go the way of more government power. We'll go the way of central bank digital currency. Why? Because it's easy. All of this, to me, makes me think, and we're going to talk to amazing guests coming up, and the answer is going to be, or you're going to be thinking the whole time, you're going to be like, how do we get out of this? Like, it's coming, perhaps it's inevitable. What do we do? To me, it makes gold all the more important. All the stuff we're talking about today, central bank digital currency, but also on top of that, our national debt, which has a direct connection to the price of gold going up. Since March 2020, the U.S. added $8 trillion in debt. 8 trillion. We're at 32 trillion total right now. Gold's up 50% over that time period. Why? The BRICS nations, among other reasons, right? So you got Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Now you got Saudi Arabia, UAE, other countries joining in as well, and they're all buying gold. They see it. And then you think about Bidenomics, more spending, more regulation, you know it's only going to get worse. So gold and silver can be your way against this. Patriot Gold Group, they're their company to call. They could have called their company anything. They went with Patriot Gold Group. Why? Because they're Patriots, just like you and I. They get it. We're on the same team. We're in it for the same reasons. Patriots protecting patriots. Talk about a no fee for life IRA for your IRA 401k. It can be in physical gold and silver. And also you can just buy gold. You just have a pile of it, just a bit of it, a chunk of it, a block, whatever. You can buy gold yourself. The FedEx guy just comes, knocks on your door, hands it to you in a box, and there's your gold. And you have it. But to me, it's protection. Phone number on the bottom of your screen. Get a free investor guide. Consumer Affairs top-rated gold IRA dealer now 7 years in a row. PatriotGoldGroup.com.
Digital Danger, the Currency Crisis. Brought to you by Patriot Gold Group. Digital Danger, the Currency Crisis. Brought to you by Patriot Gold Group.
Recent actions from the Biden administration have made it clear that they are not only itching to create a digital dollar, but they're willing to trade Americans' right to financial privacy for a surveillance-style CBDC. If not open, permissionless, and private, like cash, a CBDC is nothing more than a CCP-style surveillance tool that can be weaponized to oppress the American way of life. We're not going to let that happen. Not on House Republicans' watch.
That's good. That's one of the few congressmen we were just talking about in the last segment, one of the few congressmen who is on this issue. Connor Tomlinson is another person who's all over central bank digital currency and understanding what it is, and lives over on the other side of the pond. So he is at the tip of the spear and sees it coming. So he's our crystal ball for what's coming here to America and the rest of the world. Connor's a writer and presenter at lotuseaters.com. Connor, how you doing, brother?
Pleasure, Mike. Thanks very much for having me back on. We've had quite the studio upgrade since the last time I spoke to you.
Well done. Always upgraded. Always things looking up. I love it, man. Well deserved. Tell me about CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. What do we need to know?
Well, the name is as it says on the tin. It's a digital currency which the government can inflate, manipulate, and confiscate at any time. Unlike a traditional cryptocurrency, where the blockchain exists to hypothetically empower the people who own it. So you have a digital ledger, so you can ensure that it has had its integrity at all stages of use, so you can retrace it from creation through every transaction until it ends up in your hands. The central bank digital currency creates a kind of line of use between everyone who's ever used it for the government to surveil at any time. And so this means that no economic transaction will fall outside the purview of the state. There will no longer be any cash-in-hand businesses like your local lemonade stand or your lawn mowing thing that you could do as a teenager that won't be subject to taxation, or certain businesses which spread dissident ideas that the Biden administration don't like very much may not be able to be paid patronage if they put them on a blacklist for spreading misinformation. Ooh. And the other interesting thing as well is that they are currently looking at possibly co-opting existing technologies. So this might be a stable coin like Tether, which is directly tied to the US dollar, or something like Ethereum, which is different from Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, there's a fixed amount, and you have to use the blockchain to decode it in order to crack a certain amount of Bitcoin. So this is called a proof of work model. So you have to put in a certain amount of computing power and energy in order to earn your Bitcoin. Whereas Ethereum can be created ex nihilo. It can just be invented and printed more like, your regular dollar that can result in inflation at the moment. And this is called a proof of stake, which means that the amount of coins is dependent on the stakeholders saying how much it is worth and how much there needs to be. We've all heard of stakeholder capitalism from the World Economic Forum. This basically just means international organizations and the governments they're beholden to appointing their experts to tell us plebs what's good for us, how much money we should be having, and whether or not we can and can't spend it on the businesses and products that we like.
Yes. So someone will say, can't the government already control that? Or doesn't the government already know? Or the banks already know and the credit card companies already know? So what's the big deal if there's just one more level of surveillance? You're already filling out W-9s and W-2s and all these other tax documents. Doesn't the government already know? What's the big deal?
Well, of course, they already know quite a lot of our economic activity, and that's kind of the problem. One of the main problems with current cash, and this is why we have such rampant inflation, is that it's backed by nothing. I mean, back in 1971, America pretty much had all the world's gold in order to create the dollar as the global reserve currency, and that was sold off. And then you see a massive gap between the wages and the real terms productivity of the country. So it's like inflation's like a stealth tax. It's screwing over the working man. What happens here is that we have the extra layer of non-transparency because the government can see everything you do and everything has to be funneled through government approval. And so you no longer have those cash in hand businesses. So what ends up happening is every single economic transaction exists only on the permission of the state. And unlike at the moment, if you can have your bank account turned off, like Nigel Farage has almost in the UK, with 40 pages of his transgressions against progressivism cited as the reason why he should have his bank account taken away. At least he has the cash in his own pocket to pay for the bus fare to get home. But if you go, and as we all know, they're trying to stop us using cars to just go on terrible public transport systems. If you're trying to buy groceries or you're trying to get the bus home from work, and suddenly, because you tweeted out the wrong thing, your government can turn off your digital wallet at a moment's notice, then you won't even have cash in your own wallet to be able to do simple activities like that. So the government has complete control on arbitrary whim at any moment, at any time, instant access to your ability to just live a normal life. So it's that ratcheting effect upwards towards the total surveillance and control of everyone's lives.
Yeah, and every tyrant in history would have loved that power, but there was never the technological ability to do it. But now it's there. They just have to force it upon us some way. So how are they going to do that? What's the spin they're going to use to try to get people to think this is a great idea? Oh, I love it. It's so easy. It's so efficient. It'll stop drug dealers or something. What are the pitches that they're going to give to us?
Well, the pitch currently, and you can see this in all of the countries that are trying to promote this at the moment, and the international bodies like the UN and the World Economic Forum that give them their marching orders. They say, oh, it's very inclusive because this means that everyone with a smartphone can access this. It's carbon neutral because once the entire energy grid is run on renewables, not that it ever will be, even though we're going to be paying for it out of the nose, then suddenly it's totally carbon neutral. We won't have to print and distribute all this money and deliver it to the banks and whatnot. There's no storage problems. All great pie in the sky ideas. The issue comes when they manufacture consent in order to have this, not just with the climate issue, raising scaremongering concerns about the planet burning, and so you have to give over all of your freedoms and all of the existing energy means that can actually generate good energy because, I don't know, worse pollution or something. It's not like they can't capture the carbon. But anyway, the problem comes when you see what they do in the UK and sort of what they're doing in the States now. So what governments have done during lockdown is they printed loads of money in order to pay for stimulus checks or what we called the Eat Out to Help Out schemes and the furlough payments, basically paying people to stay at home and subsidizing businesses that were closed to try and keep them afloat. Well, when all this money supply enters the money system, it hits about 18 months or so later, and the goods have stagnated, but the amount of money has increased. So inflation happens, tax on the poor, but it also means that the government have created an economic crisis that they can then use as CBDCs as the solution for. So they've manufactured the crisis, and then they introduce the solution that they always wanted anyway. And when someone like Liz Truss comes in and upsets the apple cart, they oust her. Now, the fascinating thing that's happened in the UK is that Rishi Sunak has, for the G7, been the spearhead for central bank digital currencies. He recorded a down-camera message while Chancellor during COVID saying that Britcoin, terrible pun, will be the future. And that is a digital pound that the government can have alongside cash. Don't worry, we won't eliminate cash. We promise. Well, Rishi Sunak was primed to become Prime Minister after Boris Johnson resigned in disgrace. But the membership chose Liz Truss instead because we found Rishi Sunak to be utterly disingenuous. And Liz Truss was a tax-cutting conservative. She wasn't very bright, but she proposed a 1% tax cut, and she was going to borrow a little bit of money in order to do this. The Bank of England, and Andrew Bailey, the head of the Bank of England, has again been very supportive of CBDCs, decided right before her mini-budget, a 1% tax cut dropped to sell loads of bonds, conduct quantitative tightening at the same time as quantitative easing. Now, Britain is the only country in the world doing that risky strategy, by the way, and our economies are hitched to America and China. So if one of you guys fail, especially China because they hate us, then our plan won't work out anyway. So when the news of that hit, it coincided with Truss's budget, and it looked like, oh, Liz Truss has crashed the economy. So that ousted her, made her the shortest prime minister in history. And suddenly Rishi Sunak steps in as the de facto candidate, the only person to take over, with Jeremy Hunt as his chancellor, very unpopular man who is very hitched to the Chinese Communist Party through his wife and through his admiration for their very tyrannical COVID policies. Rishi Sunak steps in and goes, oh, we're going to raise taxes. And suddenly the markets are stabilized. How curious. It's almost like the Bank of England, Rishi Sunak, and the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, wanted CBDCs. wanted the economy to continue getting worse as the excuse for CBDCs, and ousted the only person that was willing to accidentally stumble on changing the mandate for that. So be very aware when the Fed doesn't look like it's conducting sensible monetary policy, because it seems like they are engineering this crisis to give you the solution they wanted anyway.
Never let one of those crises go to waste. You guys are our crystal ball. I know you just beautifully gave us a story of how that goes. And you mentioned Nigel Farage as well. That's a hint, I believe, of what's to come here in America. Tell the Nigel Farage story briefly so we can see exactly, I think, what this will look like. And we can imagine how a digital currency would make it even easier.
Oh yeah, Nigel Farage, Mr. Brexit, probably one of the most popular people in political life over in Britain, one of the only people capable of holding our elites to account as well, had his bank account with Coutts Bank, which is a private bank, sort of. It's hitched to NatWest, which is actually partially government-owned after the 2008 financial collapse. He was warned that it was going to be taken away from him. And the BBC reported that it's because he didn't meet the threshold for the amount of money he had in his account, which was something like a couple of million or something like that. Can't remember off the top of my head. But Nigel assured, without releasing his bank details, because that's his right not to, that he absolutely had the money in there. It turns out that one of the executives was sitting at an awards dinner next to a BBC journalist, and the BBC took her word for it without vetting their source. What actually happened was there was a 40-page internal document that said, we are an inclusive bank, and Nigel Farage not taking the side of Ukraine unquestioningly in the Ukraine-Russia war, being for Brexit, and tweeting out clips of Ricky Gervais talking about trans issues in jokes meant that those were transgressions which warranted him being debanked. Now, other members of his party, he's currently the chairman of Reform UK, formerly the Brexit Party. The head of the party, Richard Tice, can't get a bank account. Reclaim Party, Lawrence Fox's party, a similar right-wing party in the UK, has been refused a bank account as well. There have been other figures who have been deplatformed, just like the Canadian truckers have. And so this is a premonition of what's to come, because what's happened is they have ascribed us, as well as the corporate social credit score, the ESG, a consumer social credit score. And the incentive there is for ESG compliant companies to rank their customers' compliance with their ESG mandates. So if you are an aberration, if you tweet out something against progressivism, diversity, inclusion, and the climate crisis, suddenly you're not an asset for the bank, you're a liability. So actually their ESG compliance goes up if they take your account away. And what's happened is Nigel Farage, they just went for someone too big at this stage in time because they had to back off, executives were fired, and he might be getting a payout. But people like Richard Fothergill, a reverend in the UK, who, when asked by his bank for feedback, wrote to his small Yorkshire building society, well, I don't really like your pride celebrations. Maybe you can bring that back a bit. He was debanked. So what's happening is it's happening on the ground level. Regular people are having this done to them. It's only going to get worse. And the people that don't have Farage's platforms are going to be left out of the conversation. So we really need to pay attention to this stuff.
No question. Well done. Connor Tomlinson, writer, presenter at lotuseaters.com. Connor, thank you, sir, for your insight.
Thank you very much.
I've always said that the rest of America should look to California as a crystal ball for what's to come for the country, and everyone else, we all need to look to England to see what's coming. And that Nigel Farage story is a perfect example of why. More coming up next. Mike Slater, The First TV. Spread the word.
Digital Danger, the Currency Crisis. Brought to you by Patriot Gold Group. Digital Danger, the Currency Crisis. Brought to you by Patriot Gold Group.
About half of the jobs in the United States, a highly developed country, is threatened today to be replaced in the next 10, 15 years by artificial intelligence, robotization, three-dimensional printing, and so on.
All right, that's Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum. Let's combine central bank digital currency and artificial intelligence, all these futuristic things. Let's put them together, make sense of it. Joe Allen, he's the author of Dark Eon, Transhumanism and the War Against Humanity. Joe, how you doing, brother?
Very good, very good. Glad to be here.
I want with you to talk about the next level stuff, but give us like your quick elevator pitch on what central bank digital currency is.
You know, it's blockchain-based currency, not unlike our own currency, but strictly digital. It's being normalized all over the planet. Places like Africa, believe it or not, are some of the first, the earliest adopters. But the idea behind it, the total digitization of currency, however far away that is, it is undoubtedly being rolled out. And what we already see in the mass adoption of digital payment systems voluntarily, even with cash right there for you to use, I suspect that it will not be as hard to push out onto the population as I would like to think.
Yeah, people will accept it very willingly. We said in the first segment that already very few Americans use cash. Only 19% of consumer payments are with cash. And that's different from the rest of the world. Other countries around the world, even like Germany's 82% still use cash. We don't. So I think it'll be easy to implement, don't you?
Absolutely. And I worry about all of the other sorts of programs that are kind of riding on top of this digital trend. As they become more and more normalized, it's impossible to predict with any accuracy how much they will be adopted. I suspect, again, much more so than I'm comfortable with.
Okay. So what happens next? What do these governments do with this central bank digital currency that's such a problem?
Well, I mean, the idea is that you would be able to track and trace and control spending, right, in the most extreme paradigms. A lot of the justification is for things like climate change, right, to see what your carbon footprint is and to allow the government to step in and intervene when your spending patterns exceed your carbon credits. That's one potential path. There are a number of different paths, though. You remember during the war on terror and the bank accounts being frozen there. There's no reason to believe that an extreme right-wing regime wouldn't use these same technologies to curtail personal freedom as an extreme left-wing regime. I think the ring of power is being offered, and the more this is tied to biometric identity, the less possibility there is to escape.
Okay, I want to get to the biometric stuff. Let me push back on this for 1 second. This is interesting. Someone would say, Joe, isn't it good that the government can just eliminate the bank accounts of drug dealers and terrorists and people who are stealing from the government, fraud and all the rest? Wouldn't it be nice if the government could really protect the people with that tool?
If there wasn't an upside, there'd be no reason to worry about the downside. Of course, there are upsides. There are upsides for everybody having a mark on their head or their on their forehead or hand, so that you never have to worry about illegal immigration or criminals getting away or children disappearing. All of these things have tremendous upsides. The question is, where does it all go? Where does it leave us? And my fear, as we've already seen, many of the justifications for the implementation of liberty curtailing technologies and the infrastructures of control, many of the justifications are for reasons I actually believe in, such as the protection of borders, such as the elimination of criminals from society. In the end, I think that the big picture is going to be the most important because the big picture is coming out as fast.
Yeah. You mentioned biometrics. So I was at a Whole Foods the other day, owned by Amazon, and there you can pay with your palm. There's a palm reader or something, palm scanner. So like that's ridiculous. But I like inherently think it's ridiculous, just like my nature. But I was telling it to a friend, and they're like, "Well, what's the big deal? Like, what's the difference between you using your phone to pay or using your palm to pay?" What do you say to that, Joe?
I don't think there is a whole lot of difference. That's actually the real problem that I see. Nor do I think there's a lot of a difference between having your palm as your payment system and having a chip in your hand. It's just simply a matter of, it's a continuum, and it's a matter of degrees. You know, every Whole Food store by the end of 2023 is going to have the palm payment system in it. And the Amazon Palm payment system, the Amazon One system, it links your palm, right, the whorls of your palm, your unique biometric identity to your wallet and to your digital government ID. Klaus Schwab, our buddy Klaus Schwab we just heard from, defined the fourth industrial revolution in 2016 as the convergence of the physical, the digital, and the biological worlds. Alternatively, he's defined it as the fusion of our physical, our digital, and our biological identities. He was not saying, I am going to do that, because he is just a mouthpiece. What he is saying is this is the global trajectory. Nations who embrace it will win. Nations who reject it will lose. I fear that he was correct, and I think that people are going to have to make a lot of sacrifices if they don't want to hurtle down that highway.
90 more seconds. Pitch it to me.
I'll tell you
Tell
this.
me.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, give me that reason why someone should be concerned. I know there's someone on the fence right now, or someone listening right now who's like, well, I already got an Amazon Echo or whatever they're called. I already got a Ring doorbell. They already know this much about me. Who cares if it's one more step down the continuum? It'll be that much more efficient.
You know what? Maybe those souls are lost, and maybe we just have to deal with that. I don't know. I think anyone who has any sense about them knows that a centralized digital system or a decentralized digital system is inescapable once it is fully implemented. There's no getting out of it. There's no cracks in it unless the power goes out or you become proficient in hacking. That is a practical reason. The more we are surrounded in this digital cage, the less possibility there is for personal agency to be applied or anyone to fall out of the system. Another reason, though, I would give anybody who takes the book of Revelation seriously and the motifs, you don't have to have a fundamentalist one-to-one historical analysis, but you should at least recognize that the mark of the beast, the mark on the hand, was necessary to buy or sell. The guys at Amazon certainly understand that. They're rubbing it in your face. You should probably consider the long-term dark implications of what that means.
Joe Allen, the book is Dark Eon, Transhumanism and the War Against Humanity. Joe, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Appreciate you. If this all seems concerning, if this all seems likely to you, might I recommend taking some precautions for you and your family. First, you got to get your heart right. You got to get your soul at peace. You got to get your head in the right place. You got to get ready for the long haul with all of this. Things don't turn around right away. Like we're talking about the gradient. Like it's a little step here, little step here, little step here, and before you know it, it's got you. You got to get your family prepared mentally and emotionally and physically, and you got to get your finances in order. As you diversify and prepare, think about gold, something that's been around forever, something that's scarce, something that's always been desired, something that can perhaps operate outside of this. Cash may not be a thing that's traded, but gold always will, I think. There's a reason why central banks around the world are buying as much as they can. So can you. So if you trust DC, then you cash and bonds. They're looking out for you over there. If you don't trust them, if you don't trust DC, you can buy some gold. The Proud Americans Patriot Gold Group, mentioned Mike Slater. You get your free investor's guide. You can also talk about a no fee for life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be a physical gold or silver as well. The number's on the bottom of the screen. Free investor's guide. It's all yours. See if this makes sense for you and your family. And the website. Oh, and by the way, they're Consumer Affairs top-rated gold IRA dealer 7 years in a row. PatriotGoldGroup.com.
Digital Danger, the Currency Crisis. Brought to you by Patriot Gold Group. Digital Danger, the Currency Crisis. Brought to you by Patriot Gold Group.
And welcome back to our special Digital Danger, the Currency Crisis. I want to go right to our next guest because we need to know, what do we do about this? We just had two amazing guests talk about the problem. I'm now looking for a solution. Jack Haney is here. He's the CEO of Patriot Gold Group. Jack, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Really good to talk to you, and thanks for talking to us about this important issue. So, again, we just talked about it in great detail, but what are you seeing with central bank digital currency? It's not just manipulation, it's this control. It's more than manipulation, it's currency control. Before we get to the solutions, what are you seeing in that world?
Well, it's a full surveillance economy is what it is. And it was March of last year that President Biden signed an executive order, 14067, which was the Ensuring Responsible Development of Digital Assets. Robert Kiyosaki called it the most treasonous act in U.S. history. Jim Rickards calls it Biden bucks. And what it is launching this digitally based currency, which is really more a full surveillance economy across the US and across the globe, as a matter of fact. Just last week, it was announced that SWIFT is also laying the groundwork for a global interoperable blockchain ecosystem worldwide. So that's where we're trending. That's where we're heading. We're heading towards a global blockchain type digitally based currency.
Okay, so what's the problem with this, Jack? In the first segment, we talked about how Americans will so easily fall for anything if it's pitched as making it more efficient. We love efficiency. We love ease. We played the clip back in 2017 of employees at some company getting microchips in their hands. And the pitch was, it'll make it easier for you to buy food at the vending machine. All right, Jack? Like that's how easy people will accept tyranny, right? Oh, it's more efficient. So it's got to be more efficient for transacting, right?
It started with debit cards about 20 years ago, really. And what it is, it's a surveillance economy where they can see each and every single purchase that you make. These are digital tokens. They'd be able to, basically just turn off your wallet, control your spending. If you're buying fossil fuels, if you're purchasing firearms, ammunition, they can see what your purchases are. They can tax every single dollar that comes in. So it's really, like I mentioned, Robert Kiyosaki said it is the most treasonous act in U.S. history, as far as this surveillance economy on Americans.
Yeah. Where are we in the process of implementing it, right? You mentioned the debit card was kind of the beginnings of it. Where are we in the steps towards the ultimate end of it actually fully happening?
Well, just last November, the New York Fed, along with Wells Fargo, Citigroup, and MasterCard, launched a 12-week pilot program. So this thing's rolling out. It's implemented in China. This is rolling out. And what's concerning is this administration had kicked Russia out of the SWIFT banking system 18 months ago when they invaded Russia, leading to central banks' record purchases of gold. Russia, China, India, Turkey, Poland, and the development of BRICS, an alternative, basket-based reserve currency. 6 additional countries just joined last month in Johannesburg, most notable Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. So what we're looking at here is now with SWIFT laying the groundwork for this interoperable, ecosystem of blockchain currencies, gold is really proving to be the only safe haven asset where you can pull your money from the financial system.
Yeah, I'm talking with Jack Handy from Patriot Gold Group. You mentioned the BRICS. Talk about these BRICS countries. What does that mean? Who are they, and what's the problem with that?
Well, you now have Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. When you look at Russia, China, and India, billions of people, and now you have Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates joining as well. 40 other countries have applied. So now we're looking at half the world's population, half the world's landmass, half the world's GDP looking to use an alternative basket-based reserve currency to compete with the US dollar as the dominant reserve currency. And you'll have now China purchasing oil from Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, and Russia using the yuan and not the US dollar. So, that's a huge, huge setback. In fact, President Trump said it's the worst war that the U.S. can afford to lose in over 200 years.
Why are other countries' central banks buying gold? What's the point of that?
Well, many do speculate that the reason for Russia and China and their record gold purchases, because keep in mind, you have to look at, there's been 11 rate hikes over the past 2 years by the Fed. And typically rate hikes are headwinds for gold and silver because they're non-yielding assets. Meanwhile, gold was $16.50 an ounce back in October of 2022, and today it's $19.50. So gold's up 20% in spite of 11 consecutive rate hikes. Why? Because Russia, China, Poland, Turkey, India are stockpiling, literally stockpiling record amounts of physical gold and silver. And many are speculating because Putin and Russia had hinted at about 2 months ago BRICS being backed by gold. So a new dominant reserve currency being BRICS, which is an alternative basket-based reserve currency, being backed by gold because of fiat money and the U.S. dollar and our $33+ trillion in debt.
When I hear that, I think, well, if they're buying it, I can't get it. You know what I mean? Like if China wants it all, how am I able to get some myself? How does that work? How do you get it to people?
Well, I'm not a certified financial investment advisor, nor do I give tax advice. But what I do tell our clients is, do what central banks are doing. Central banks are the ones that can print just endless amounts of money, endless amounts of US dollars, endless amounts of yuan, endless amounts of whether it be euros or pounds. Meanwhile, what are central banks doing? They are stockpiling record amounts of physical gold and silver. And yes, we are running into an issue right now of supply and demand, where they're, especially in silver. Right now, we're running into something close to a 200 million ounce supply deficit each year on silver. And that's because half the demand for silver is tied into its industrial and utilitarian applications. Every car commercial you see on television now is an electric vehicle. Well, the amount of silver in every electric vehicle, solar panel, mainframe computer, desktop, laptop, tablet, cell phone. So we are running into significant supply constraints in both gold and especially silver.
And you guys can just give it to people, or you guys can mail it to people.
Yes, on a simple cash purchase, you are in receipt of the physical gold and silver within 5 to 7 business days. It is shipped to you registered and insured in a nondescript box. Of course, you're not responsible for a single thing until signed for by you. But we've seen our business just absolutely skyrocket over the last 3 years since March of 2020. Then with the Russia invading Ukraine, with this administration, persistent inflation, it has been an absolute perfect storm for physical gold and silver over the past 36 months.
I can't imagine there's a single person who thinks that we're going to be spending less money over time. Debt will only get worse. Like even if Republicans win everything, debt will continue to get worse. What's the connection between debt and the price of gold?
Well, with the Fed's raising rates, the cost at servicing our $33+ trillion U.S. debt has now exceeded $1 trillion annually. We also spend $1 trillion annually on our defense budget. So there's $2 trillion right there.
Wow.
But there's a direct correlation with the U.S. debt and the price per ounce of gold. In 2010, our U.S. debt was $13 trillion, and the price of an ounce of gold was $1,000 an ounce. In 2020, our U.S. debt was $25 trillion, and gold was $1,500 an ounce. Now in 2023, in only 3 years, our debt has jumped $8 trillion. So in 2020, our debt was $25 trillion and gold was $1,500 an ounce. Now in 2023, our debt is $33 trillion and gold is $2,000 an ounce. So there is a direct correlation with the U.S. debt and the price per ounce of gold that we've seen historically since 1970, since we were taken off the gold standard.
Man, so think about that. When debt gets to 50, 60, 70 trillion dollars, it seems unfathomable. But how will gold respond to that? Jack, how can people get gold, or at least learn more about it, and 401ks and IRAs? How can people learn about that?
They can call us at 1-800-974-4653 or go to www.patriotgoldgroup.com. That's 1-800-974-GOLD, or go to www.patriotgoldgroup.com.
Like I did, and the FedEx guy comes and hands you a box with gold. You're like, this is crazy. Like, how is this possible? But if every other country, like our enemies, are all doing it, that was one of the things that kicked me over the edge. I was like, yeah, I finally have to do this. And of course, I did it with you, Jack. I'm grateful. Jack Haney, CEO, Patriot Gold Group. Thanks, brother.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me. Great to see you.
Thank you, sir. Patriot Gold Group, they're the best. Hey, they could have called themselves anything. So I know Jack and the guys over there, they're absolute first class. They're on our team. They're on our side. We're simpatico. You with me? Patriot Gold Group. They call themselves Patriot Gold Group for a reason. And when you see the rise of central bank digital currency and our debt and all the rest, gold starts to make a lot more sense. Mike Slater, on the First TV. Spread the word.
Digital Danger, the Currency Crisis. Brought to you by Patriot Gold Group.